Hi, everybody. These are our directions for our interpreting graphs activity. I think you'll find this pretty simple. Again, there's really not a lot new on this from the last couple of lessons. It's just a little bit more reading things off graph. You notice yesterday we had the thing on the drag strips and the like. So this one just going to further that a little bit more. It's going to give you a trip. Do this side first. There are two sides, a single graph and then a multiple graph. Do the single graph side first. And basically, it's just going to ask you some questions based on the graph, and you have to interpret what's going on. Another thing that sometimes gets some people is there's a couple questions that ask for an average speed again, and you're going to be giving these in miles per hour because the time increments are hours and the distance increments are in miles. So at any rate, it'll say things like, what was the average rate of speed during the first 3 hours? Well, anytime you're finding an average speed, you need to know the distance and the time. We already have the time. It's 3 hours. It says it right there in the question. What we need to find is the distance. And so all we got to do is look at the hours. There's the first 3 hours. We go up, and that's where they were at after 3 hours, and they traveled 40 miles. So it is 40 divided by 3. Remember to round all of your answers to the nearest tenth if you get big, long decimal answers. It does a similar thing and it says, what was the average rate of speed during the last 3 hours? Well, on that, the last 3 hours were right here. Now, again, the last 3 hours started right there. There's 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours, and they started. This is a little trickier than last one. They started at mile 50 and they ended at mile 65, which means in that 3 hour time, they went 15 miles. So that one's a little trickier just because you're not starting down here at zero. Anyway, more on that. Make sure every answer you write that's a speed, you write with a slash in per hour. They didn't write that uh, well, actually, they didn't need to because they're not asking for an average speed right there. But make sure you have those slashes for average speeds. And then when you go to the second side, it's going to be asked you to interpret the graph. And I'll tell you, the one I always get questions on is what is happening in this part. And you got to read this very carefully. And then all of these are just interpreted. I don't think you have to find any average speeds. The entire way on this side. I don't think so. So at any rate, that is today's, again, just more graph reading. Your next test is going to have some graph reading and plotting and the like. And so that's why we spent some time on that. And that's it for today's directions. Thanks for watching.